the topic of today is why me? MS and autoimmunity explained, and explained from a different perspective. We're going to kind of take a functional medicine, integrative medicine lens where we're really looking at the whole body, and we're thinking about body parts that you probably don't think about on a daily basis, right? We're going to get really granular and kind of zoom in into the microscopic parts of our bodies. So we're going to talk about the autoimmunity triad and our blueprint for healing. So let me give you a little quick background on the immune system. When I was in medical school, I thought the immune system was unlearnable. It's so complicated and intricate, and there's so much redundancy built into it. And it's very dynamic. Things are changing all the time. So it's this really beautiful system of cells, antibodies, chemical messengers, whose job is actually to protect our bodies. So if there is a bacterial or viral infection, the immune system kicks in. If we get a cut, the immune system gets activated. One of the most important functions of the immune system is to be able to distinguish between self and non-self, okay? So what does that mean? The immune system has to learn to be tolerant of what is our own tissues, because if we attack our own tissues, that would be called an autoimmune disease. The immune system also has to learn to not attack food, because if it does that, then it's called a food sensitivity or a food allergy. So we want to leave our tissues and food alone, and we want to reserve the defenses of the immune system for attacking what's foreign and dangerous, like viruses, bacteria, fungi, etc. Now, how does the immune system know how to do that? Well, it doesn't know that on its own. It is waiting for signals to come in and teach it what to attack and what to leave alone. And it's the environment that does that education, so that the immune system can learn what to be tolerant of and what to attack. So this is why our kids, and even we as adults, should play with dirt and not aim for overly sterile environments. It's this early exposure from the environment of bugs that aren't going to cause disease in us, but they're just enough information for the immune system to say, okay, this feels safe. We're not going to attack this stuff. We're going to reserve our defenses for other things. So in functional medicine, we talk about autoimmunity kind of in a big picture perspective. It's not something that falls on your head one day. It evolves over years to decades under the right conditions. And the right conditions are actually the wrong conditions. They're the conditions in our bodies that don't optimize how the body runs or healing, right? So this, when we are under these conditions that allow autoimmunity to evolve, there is eventually a loss of tolerance and regulation. So the immune system forgets the rules, and it forgets that it's supposed to, attack this thing and leave that thing alone, right? So how does this happen? Well, there's multiple factors involved. It's all very complex. Like in all the years I've studied medicine and science, like I've never found these single approaches to disease or healing to ever really be truth. Right? So what are the factors that are involved? Well, we always break it down into genetics and the environment. So let's talk about the autoimmune triad and break down what that is, okay? In functional medicine, we think 3 things have to be in place for you to get an autoimmune disease. These aren't the only 3 things, but we think these 3 have to be present for that process to evolve over time. First and foremost, genetics. You can't help the genetics you got from your parents, but it's not as simple as saying, well, I have the genes, so I'm going to get these diseases, right? If you went and did your 23andMe and you got your top 10 diseases that you're going to get, you're not going to get all 10 of those, right? Because it's not as simple as just having the genes. Genes have to be turned on and off. And this is actually a fascinating area of medicine and science that we call epigenetics. It's this study of how genes are turned on and off based on the information from the environment. So you have to have the right genes, and those right genes have to be turned on. Number two, membrane permeability. And by membrane, I'm talking about the lining of your GI tract. This is something we talk about in Western or in functional medicine, integrative medicine a lot. We call it hyperpermeable gut, leaky gut. And here's what it is. This is a topic for a different discussion, but how I will explain it to you is that here's a normal situation. These are the cells lining your GI tract, and up here in the white space is the space within the tube of your GI tract. When you eat, food comes down this space, finds one of these fingers. If that interaction between the receptor and whatever came into the body is a safe interaction, that thing will get pulled into the cell. So now you've passed your first checkpoint to make sure that thing was safe to enter. The second checkpoint is right here where this dark red line is. This is where the immune system sits. And it's the second checkpoint to make sure the thing that came into the cell is actually okay to get into the body by getting into the blood. This is a normal GI tract where all the cells are nicely adhered to each other. If something wants to get into the body, it has to go through a cell. Here's what leaky gut looks like, and there is microscopic evidence of this. There's spaces between the cells because the proteins have broken down, and now things that are going through the lumen of the GI tract can leak in. They bypass that first checkpoint, and they hit the immune system right here. And so things that we may not want to be in the body can now maybe get in. The other thing that's happening is the immune system's getting bombarded by information. We think that this is really one of the key causes of not just autoimmunity, but also food sensitivities and food reactions. So you can see how in an abnormal situation where the cells have moved apart from each other and created spaces, that unwanted things may enter the body at a much higher rate than this situation. The third thing that needs to be in place is a trigger. Something has to tip the system over so that that autoimmune process really can start blooming and taking over. So let's talk about what the triggers are. So think of triggers as factors that provoke symptoms, okay? Now you may think back to your own autoimmune disease or MS and think about, all of a sudden I lost my vision, and that was the first sign of MS, but preceding that, perhaps you had a really stressful event, right? Work was stressful, loss of a loved one, something that maybe was the trigger that pushed you over the edge. Now, these triggers are what we think about as the imbalances or root causes of autoimmunity, okay? So I'm going to kind of break them down. Of course, this list is not exhaustive. I'm just giving you a few examples. Triggers can be stress and trauma, whether it's emotional or physical, because that revs up your body and your immune system, and the immune system starts getting forgetful and dysregulated and loses tolerance. Poor nutrition. This could be artificial foods that we eat. We all eat them. They're all over the place. Or food sensitivities that might be, at play that we're not aware of. Poor sleep, chronic sleep, loss of sleep over long periods of time. Many of us sleep 5 to 6 hours and think that's normal. Exposure to man-made toxins, right? What happens is when this stuff on the left side of the screen happens, it starts throwing off our body systems, such as the microbiome. This is a collection of friendly bugs in our large intestine that do a lot to keep our health intact and our immune systems ticking away normally. So when these things on the left happen, your microbiome can get disrupted. I mean, there's many reasons why that can happen, but this is a root cause of autoimmunity as well. We know in autoimmune disorders that the microbiome is not in balance. Another system that goes out of balance is the mitochondria. These are the small parts of your cells within each cell that produce energy for us, and they have a lot to say about cell lifespan and how much energy we produce for the body. So they're very foundational. So when the mitochondria are damaged, that can lead to autoimmune diseases. And then hormone imbalance, which can happen for many reasons. For example, chronic stress spikes your cortisol. And when cortisol gets spiked, thyroid can get suppressed. So everything starts going out of balance. And all of these things are triggers that, again, drive that autoimmune process. So how do we treat autoimmunity and MS at the root cause? This is really the secret right here, except it's not a secret because I think we all intuitively know this. So I would say 90 to 95% of your success in treating your health is to focus on the first big bullet point here, lifestyle habits. I can tell you from personal experience, and I can tell you from the experience of treating thousands of people with various conditions, that this is where the bulk of your success is going to come from, because I'm always going to commit to telling you the truth. I think that herbals and nutraceuticals play a small role. Without good lifestyle habits in place, you're not going to get nutraceuticals to really do what they were intended to do. Complementary therapies as well can be helpful. These are things like acupuncture, hypnosis, that are kind of like that added layer. But again, just like nutraceuticals, I don't think complementary therapies work well. You know, when I practiced acupuncture, people would come in for insomnia and they wanted acupuncture to sleep better. All the acupuncture in the world isn't going to put you to sleep if you're staying up till 2 a.m. on your screens and eating a bunch of sugar and you're stressed. Right? So this is why lifestyle habits, like what you eat, how you move your body, how you sleep, how you cope with stress, and how you avoid toxins matters. And the one that we really don't talk a lot about is toxin avoidance, which is really big for me. It's something I am constantly trying to bring awareness to, because it's the big elephant in the room that nobody's really talking about. Okay, so the nice thing about working at the root cause level and doing this stuff is that it's going to address the autoimmune triad. You will start turning on the desirable genes through this power of epigenetics. You will also turn off the not so desirable genes, like maybe the ones that are pro-inflammatory. Also, you will start repairing leaky gut. You will also start ameliorating these triggers, dampening them, so that your immune system can sort of come back to a more regulated state. One thing I want to really stress is that autoimmunity isn't an all or none phenomenon. It's not a switch, either you have it or you don't. It's a gradient. You can be very dysregulated or very regulated. And as you practice good habits, hopefully you move from dysregulated to more regulated. I see this all the time. When I go away from my good habits and I'm traveling, I'm eating bad food, I'm not sleeping, I feel my MS symptoms a little bit more. I feel like my immune system moved a little bit more towards dysregulation. So then when I put my good habits back into place, I move back towards better regulation. So I think this is another way to think about why we have relapses and remissions, right? We have good days and bad days. So it's something I want everybody to start kind of paying attention to, right? Things are very fluid and dynamic. So when we practice good lifestyle habits, we bring regulation to the immune system, which means inflammation goes down, the gut heals, the microbiome becomes healthier with healthier bugs growing in there. And this doesn't take long. It's on the order of weeks, sometimes even days, with really radical changes, especially in diet. Our mitochondria start working better and they can increase in numbers, which means we produce more energy, which means fatigue improves, anxiety and depression improve, pain improves. Mitochondria are very foundational to our health. So we want to take good care of them. And there are no medications really to target this. As we practice good habits, hormones come back into balance. Again, no pharmaceuticals for this. Our detoxification pathways work better. So not just our liver, but our gut microbiome. There's a lot of detox that happens in these two systems. So if we can support them, we just end up doing more detox, which is really important. We don't address this in Western medicine. And we also support our nervous system, so mood improves. Okay, we're going to do a quick tour of these lifestyle habits. So the secret to good nutrition is simple. It's whole foods, which means unprocessed as they grow in nature, and mostly plants, which is the plant-based part. Maybe if you can get to 80% plants, that's a great place to be because you're going to flood yourself with all the good molecules. I'm picking on gluten and dairy here because those are the top two offenders. If you have food sensitivities, please consider doing an elimination diet. It's really by far the best way to identify food sensitivities because many of them can be subtle. I know you were asking, can I do a blood test instead? You can, but it's not as accurate. We have to use exercise as a tool. It's powerful medicine because it lowers inflammation and boosts our cell-protecting antioxidants. Our microbiome and mitochondria become healthier, and it's by and far the most important tool for brain health. If you want to avert dementia, start exercising every day. I know we tell people 3 to 4 days, but I find when I do 3 to 4 days, sometimes I don't really want to do it every day, but the more I exercise, the more I want to do it. So I think the question we should be asking ourselves is not, when am I going to exercise or am I going to exercise today? I think we exercise every day. The question is, how does my body want to move today? It could be simple, a 5-minute walk, or you can go pound it out on a treadmill and do group sports or whatever. But please move your body every day. Our bodies were not made to be sedentary. And restorative sleep, this is my new obsession because I've become a total sleep snob. This is one of the most powerful tools to heal your immune system. If you want to learn more, check out the article linked below here. It's a fascinating article about how the immune system and the sleep systems talk to each other. So here's an example. When you're sleep deprived, your sleep systems are going to say something's wrong. We're stressed, we're under danger, we're under attack. Let's tell the immune system to turn up inflammation. And that's what the immune system does. And it becomes more dysregulated. Versus when you sleep more and your body doesn't feel like it's under attack, it's going to send signals to the immune system to say, calm down. Don't need all that information. It works both ways, right? When the immune system is revved up, let's say you just got a viral infection, there's a lot going on, or you got a vaccine, the immune system's getting stirred up. The immune system is going to tell the sleep system, I think we need you to go down. You need to sleep so that we can take care of whatever it is that we're working on right now. So they talk to each other. It's fascinating. So one of the most powerful ways to regulate your immune system is to get good sleep, 8 to 9 hours before 10 p.m. at night. You want to be asleep during the dark hours. And I have this new obsession with darkness that has really made me think about all of the systems that come alive at night when we sleep. There's a lot of healing that happens during that time. So don't skimp out on that. And then finally, stress management. It's unquestionable that there's a link between stress and autoimmunity and inflammation. This article below, I pulled out an excerpt from it that says, childhood traumatic stress increases the likelihood of autoimmune diseases decades later into adulthood. So think to yourself, what kind of conditions did you grow up in prior to the age of 18? Did you have a stressful home or parents fighting? Was there loss of a parent, either due to death, divorce, abandonment? Was there abuse, whether it was physical, emotional, verbal, sexual? It's very well documented, especially through the ACEs study that was done, that the more of these points that you can get prior to age 18 where there was stress, the more your likelihood of adult chronic diseases, autoimmune and beyond. So my approach to stress management is, first of all, remove any stressors that you can. Not everything's removable. And then learn and use your coping skills for managing the leftover stress. There's really no other way around it. There's no medications for this. There's not even supplements. They can calm you down, but that doesn't really help get your immune system into rest and relaxation and out of fight and flight. This is really important, actually. This stress has profound effects on our immune systems. And finally, decreasing our toxic exposures. There are thousands of compounds we are each coming in contact with every day. They disrupt our hormone systems, the immune system, the nervous system, and there's a lot to learn about it. So I urge you to get curious, go to a website like the Environmental Working Group and start learning, or join our social media where we start putting out information about various toxins and what you could do about it. I want you to think about, first of all, decreasing your exposures so that the liver and the microbiome don't have to work so hard, and then support these systems through lifestyle and nutrition and sleep and exercise so they can do this really hard, important work. And then I hope that if you can slowly start putting in one easy thing now and one easy thing in a few weeks from now, that you will start strengthening your roots because you're working at the foundational level, and that your health will begin to flourish and thrive. I see this transformation all the time in my patients, and it's really what makes doing this work worthwhile, because people find their way and they figure out how they need to put into practice the things that are necessary to get their health on track. Okay, so that is the end of my presentation.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Susan, for an amazing presentation. I hope that gives you all a different framework to think about the immune system and how you can bring more law and order to it. We had a couple of questions here in the chat box, and I'm glad you finished right on time. So you have, good job.
It was my New Year's resolution. I'm working on it.
Great. So we have plenty of time to go through your questions, and I am going to start. Let me see here. Okay, so there's a question about leaky gut. I love that subject. So let's go. So first question is, do you think leaky gut can contribute to getting MS?
Absolutely, because it's the second part of the triad, and it's one of the key ingredients in driving forward autoimmunity. You know, in Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine that are very, you know, ancient forms of healing that are very holistic, that take the whole body into account, they think about gut health as being really foundational to overall bodily health. So if there's one system you can focus on, if it feels overwhelming and there's too many things going on, it's getting your gut health in order. And that's a big topic. But what I would say is start with an elimination diet. Remember, I said, find out what your food sensitivities are, because you can be eating a perfect diet, but if you have learned to become sensitive to some of these foods, there's inflammation in the GI tract. So you keep fueling the fire by eating some foods that could be very healthy, actually. You know, nightshade vegetables, you know, tomatoes, potatoes, eggplants, etc. So it's important. And do something simple, you know, cut out gluten or dairy and see how things go. Working with an integrative provider helps. Because it's not as simple. And I think that's why a program like ours really comes handy when you need that guidance.
Yeah. And I also think it's important to learn to listen to your body, right? Because most of the time, like you eat something and then you're like, oh, I'm not feeling good. That's weird. Right. Yes. So like creating that awareness is very important. Would you agree with that, Dr. Susan?
I think it's so important. I think people with MS tend to have a lot of self-awareness because, you know, symptoms are changing and you're always like, is that MS? Oh, this thing happened. Is that MS? Right? So I think it's really good to also tune into your body, but not to the point where it becomes obsessive. But patterns are important. And here's the thing. We look to our doctors to personalize programs for us. We're the only one that knows what's going on in this body, right? And it's on us to figure out what feels right. So even something like exercise, people go, you know, I go and I run 5 miles every day and I feel so bad. Well, don't do that, right? Listen to your body. Your body probably doesn't want to do that. You know, do what feels right, I think is really important. And by the way, leaky gut symptoms are not just gastrointestinal. It could be totally asymptomatic. It could be, skin manifestations like psoriasis, eczema. So it's a messy process, but it's worth doing. And I try to break it down for people where it's less overwhelming, right? So just starting with elimination.
Yeah, and still on the same subject, do you believe you can heal leaky gut?
Absolutely. I think that you can heal it. Every system in the body is dynamic. It can get damaged. It can move back closer to being more normal, if we provide the conditions. So I call them, creating the conditions for healing, where you're bringing good, nourishing food into your body. Removing food sensitivities, you're sleeping, you're moving, you're working on stress. So just like the immune system can move between dysregulation and regulation, the gut can actually move between being damaged and inflamed and leaky to being normal. And it's actually a very dynamic system. Within a few weeks to a few months, you can actually repair this, for most people anyways. Everybody's different though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's some people asking for the link to the article that you mentioned in your presentation.
Maybe we can put it, we'll put it in the email that comes after the webinar. So check your email.
Wonderful. So Roberta, yeah, so VG, she's there also. So a lot of people asking for that. So I'll make sure we add that to the email.
And I'm so happy that people are asking for it, because one thing I want to start getting non-medical people to do is to go and read the literature. It's not as daunting as you think it is. There's easy ways. Read the first part, read the last part. You can skip all the numbers and jump, stuff in the middle, but let's, be more involved in our health and teach ourselves what we need to know.
Yeah. And there's also another question. These lifestyle changes, they seem to be so foundational and so important. Do you have any, what's your opinion? Why neurologists don't mention lifestyle changes? Do you have an opinion that you could share with us about that?
I do. Your neurologists love you. They do. And they're doing the very best that they can. But in Western medicine, we work in these silos where our training, we choose to go and train in neurology or anesthesiology, right? And so we deal with the system that we're trained to deal with. I didn't know any of this prior to getting MS. And then I had a reason to go learn it, because I had this gut feeling like there's probably more I could be doing for my health. And my neurologist and I asked my neurologist, what should I be eating? And they said, no, nothing. You could eat everything. Can I still eat sugar? Yeah, you could eat sugar, just not a lot. My gut knew that wasn't right. So then I had to go and do this, long road to figuring things out. It's not part of our medical training. I hope that it will change in the next decade or so. But it also, the work that I do in integrative medicine has required a lot of training. So I don't think it's fair to ask your neurologist to take on the lifestyle medicine piece. It's too big. It's not as simple as saying, go eat this and you're going to be fine.
Yeah. And it's also about taking charge of your own health, right? There are some things that you need to do for yourself that only you can do, right? So,
sure. Yeah.
You were going to say something?
No, I just saw something about bone broth. I know people were talking about bone broth.
Go ahead.
Yeah, bone broth is very soothing to the lining of the GI tract. So it's one good way to start, working on your gut health. I'd get organic. If you can make it at home, it's even better. And if it's fresh and you know exactly what went into it. But, it's like when you're a part of a community like this, we get to share all these fun tips with each other. So I hope we just keep these conversations going. Can I also say a question about caffeine? Can I just answer it?
Yes, go ahead. There are questions. I feel like we have to do this again, just like a Q&A with you, because so many questions. I'm afraid we're not going to have time to go through them all.
Oh yeah, no, we should probably do this regularly, office hours or something. But caffeine, I think it's fine if you're drinking coffee because you love it and it's social or it makes you feel good. I think the problem is when you start self-medicating, right? Like, can't get up and get going in the morning. I got to have my coffee every day. That's problematic. And too much coffee can actually throw off cortisol in your hormones. So if your hormone system's already a little shaky, don't rev it up with caffeine. Okay.
Yeah, so there's one question, there are a couple of questions here about toxins. So that it's not very clear what kind of toxins are we exposed to. And can you give us some examples? Would you talk
Sure.
more about the subject?
So the most common exposures come through the air we breathe, the water that comes out of our faucets, the soil that our food is grown in, which means the toxins end up in the food. And the way they get in our body is through breathing them in, through touching, through across the skin, and through the GI tract when we ingest something. There are thousands, every year I think about 2,000 new compounds are created by chemists, and they're put into our cleaning products, our personal care products, toothpaste, shampoo, makeup, our building products, our furniture. And when we come in contact with them, being in the same space as them, these compounds get into our bodies, and they can cause anything from endocrine disruption, which is a crazy concept that I didn't believe at first, but it's basically the disruption of human hormone function. For example, people's thyroids going out, too much estrogenic activity, in our young people, where like puberty is coming on about a year earlier than 100 years ago. Lots of breast cancers at younger ages, lots of autoimmunity and immune dysfunction and inflammatory diseases. So these compounds are things like BPA found in plastics, PDEs, which are fire retardants found on our furniture, kids' cribs, kids' pajamas. They even come out of your computer. You can check to see if your computer puts out PBDs. Apple products don't. I think all of them don't, but you can check this. It's not that hard. Just Google it.
Yeah, and we have a list, right? We're going to have a list in our program. We have a list of all the products, your favorite. Dr. Susan, she went through a bunch of, she did her research and she added some products that she trusts and she recommends, and it's on our website. So you can also go there and check it out. I don't know if it's available now, but if it's not, soon.
Well, on our shop, which is available to the public, we'll start using our favorite products there. But in the program, we go deep about all of that. So yeah, so there's so many. There's VOCs and all your building products and in your homes, air fresheners, all those things. So it's all around you. They're not hard to come in contact with.
Yeah. Now let's change a little bit of subject. We all know about the Walls Protocol. And there's been some questions here about the Walls Protocol. Would you talk about it a little bit?
Sure.
Okay.
I admire Dr. Walls so much for being just the amazing human that she is. Like, I get goosebumps every time I actually think about her. It's just inspiring. The Walls Protocol works because it is a whole foods, plant-based diet. So you're not eating junk, you're not eating processed foods, you're eating real foods, and you're eating mostly plants. There are animal products on that protocol, including organ meats. And the reason organ meats are on that protocol is because they're so dense in nutrients like vitamins and minerals. And it's just a really efficient way of getting those nutrients in. But doesn't she say to eat 9 cups of vegetables a day? And I think in her journey, she was eating 15 cups a day. I mean, it was like something off the charts. So, again, it's no secret. You're eating unprocessed foods and whole foods. And for some people, that protocol really works. I think, as with any diet, I don't think you can just say, this is what you do, and it's gonna be good for everybody across the board. I think this is where that personalization comes in. I can't do that for you. You, as the person, has to do that for yourself. So when I eat on the Walls Protocol, how do I feel? Right? And if you feel good, then you do it. And you might need to make your own tweaks to make it work for you. But that's what we each have to do, is the tweak. We do that ourselves.
Wonderful. And support is so important too, right? To have somebody by your side that supports you in that journey, and we have that going on in our program. And that makes a big difference.
Yep. We heal in community. There's no doubt about that. And, just like I could see what's coming through the chat and people exchanging, it's like all of a sudden, you start connecting the dots. It's like, oh, other people are doing this. That means I can do it too. It normalizes these healthy behaviors because we may not be surrounded by other people that are health-minded. So community is really important. So whether or not you're going to be in our program or not, I want you to stay check out our social media. We're going to try to really put out a lot of good education that's trustworthy there.